Hey everyone, and welcome to the first Botched Report. It will be hosted by the wonderful Emily Hall. Um, we're gonna have she's gonna ask us all some questions, ask me some questions, then I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna leave you guys with Leonard and Jaeger to discover things buried in their backstories, I guess.
Or backyards, depending on the person.
They're buried somewhere. I don't want to go digging for them by myself.
Jaeger skeletons are not in the closet, they are in the attic.
And he would probably tell you, honestly.
I don't know why that's an issue.
Jaeger would be like, yes, I have no idea why that's a problem. So I'm gonna I have one quick announcement. Every Sunday, for every 5 subs we get, we're going to be giving away a set of dice. I guess extends to here too. For every 5 subs we get, we'll be giving away a set of dice to one of our lucky subs. So hit that button, and with that, I'm going to pass it off to Emily Hall.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. I'm just now meeting these amazing people today, but I'm super excited to be asking you guys some questions. I'm relatively new to the world of D&D. I've known about it my whole life, but I didn't really get into it until a couple of months into COVID. And so I've been super excited to learn about how it all works, and to hear about somebody else's campaign will be really interesting. Very cool. Okay, so let's start with some questions for the DM here, Josh. So my first question, when some people are creating a world, creating a homebrew, some like to think of themselves as builders. You know, they build the frame of a house, they know exactly how it's going to be, they measure everything very precisely. And some think of themselves as gardeners. So they're a little bit less precise, more planting seeds and letting it naturally grow and evolve. I wanted to ask you how you felt. Which version of that do you lean towards more? And since the campaign started, have your ideas for the homebrew kind of changed or evolved in order to adapt to the changing gameplay styles, character backstories? What do you think?
Well, I'll answer that one in 2 parts. So, I am definitely a builder. I have maps and populations built for areas. I plan NPCs out where they live, how they're going to interact with the party way before the party knows that place exists most of the time. I think that stems from having 20 years of DMing. I kind of, for this campaign especially, I took parts from those other campaigns and be like, well, this town was really great, I'm gonna pull this in, I'm gonna take this and put this here, and I kind of do it that way. And then once we get into that area that I've built, that's when I do the gardening part, so to speak. When they get in there, that's when things tend to change and become a little more fluid, and that's when it really gets fleshed out past what I can build, because there's every time I build something and I'm like, this is everything they need, they come in there like, we're not going to touch any of that. We're just going to go over here where you didn't put anything and make it up as you go. And then as far as changing everything, I don't want to say the party is very, what's the best way to say it?
Pain in the ass?
No, I wasn't going to go that way. I was going to say they're just, they get a lot more invested than a lot of other parties. So they take stances on things that I thought were trivial and really force me to do some really good gardening in that aspect, and changing things around, and making them, giving them the opportunity to explore what they want to explore, because in the end, all I can do is build the world, and they have to really live in it.
Specific instances of a change that happened that surprised you, or maybe something that happened with a player where you kind of had to improvise?
Well, I have a couple smaller ones. I haven't had any super big ones yet. Well, actually, one of the bigger ones actually led to a combat encounter I hadn't planned on. Leonard was headed into Stormhaven and wanted to go check on his family, specifically his brother. And I really had no plans on having his brother around at that moment. So as soon as he couldn't find his brother, I had to kind of off the fly find a reason for him to go find his brother, which led to a pretty big combat change because the party was in this mode that they were going to find someone else, and then as soon as the combat's done, they shifted from we're gonna go find this guy to let's go check on Leonard's family, and it really changed. I mean, I added a new combat encounter, added a new location, which I think is I love when that kind of stuff happens from a DM, but it was a pretty big, like, in the middle of the episode, like, swing in a different direction.
Cool.
If I can ask, you had that farmhouse set up in Tailspire. Were you planning on us simply doing that later, or did you happen to like build an encounter area, realize what we were doing, and just throw us into that one?
The second one. I had like I was like, I'm gonna build this because eventually they're gonna have, like, I may need a random encounter at some point. And farmhouses are always great for that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, now I have to use this right now. Let me, just throw them into it and really replace everything.
It's a great DM pro tip. Just have a throwaway battleground ready to rock at at a moment's notice.
Oh yeah, have at least 4 or 5 of them, because through a serious campaign, you're gonna have just like, oh yeah, we're gonna stop here and do this, and you're like, oh, now I need to make them do something. They can't just, you want to make it interesting for the players. So it's nice to have those combat encounters kind of on hand and tucked away so that no one else knows about them yet. I still have
Awesome.
4 or 5 of them hidden around.
Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask you is, do you have favorite NPCs that either you have created for the campaign or that have kind of popped up throughout the campaign?
So far, we haven't seen a whole lot of the NPCs in this campaign yet. I do personally have a favorite NPC that the party will meet soon. I've had this NPC for 15 years, since high school. He came about as like a throwaway character, and like an NPC, and I just kind of fell in love with the character, and he's shown up in all my campaigns. So I do have a favorite NPC that they will meet, but so far I would have to say my favorite NPC was Atriel from the first town, Pudmouth, that they were in, because I really got to give him some complexity, and the players were really torn on how they viewed him. We had half the party like really liked this guy. Kiaz in particular was really good friends with this guy, and then the rest of a good portion of the party was like, I hate him. I don't know why. I just hate him. And
he's an aristocratic pimple, but
yeah. So he had a nice slow way of talking, and just considered himself better than everyone. So it was really a good chance to give the party a chance to interact on both sides. So it wasn't just like that really good NPC everybody loves, or that really bad guy everybody hates. The party being split was like, one minute they'd be like, oh, you're the greatest, and the next they'd be like, yeah, I hate that guy. I want to hit him in the face. So it really gave me a chance to explore that gray space where they don't fit into one particular thing.
Do you think that the different attitudes towards that character came from the class types, the backstories, whether or not they were noble or lowborn? Was there any kind of pattern with that?
So one of our characters, Kias, really liked him because Kias is very clean and proper himself, and Atriel was like, I don't like to get dirty. Atriel had a fight with another NPC because they just barged in their house and didn't wipe their feet and tracked dirt through the house. So there was that I think played into it. Another thing was the character backstories, and I think the biggest part that was like the values that they had and how he kind of got bottlenecked into being, especially at first, being seen as not really caring and like I tried to play him as like aloof and like above the town. He felt like he was above the town. And then he had an argument with another NPC, Muriel, that was Miriam, I think. That was
Miriam.
yeah. She was like the foreman of the mines. She was like the regular person, the hardworking. And when it came to light, it was just like differences in what they thought was best for the town and how to best protect the town in the future that really opened everything up. But at first, I think it was that how he carried himself clashed with a couple backstories. At least that's what I think. What do you guys think? Why did everybody hate Atriel?
I liked actually, but before I get to my opinion, I liked how it played out, that the personalities flipped when Crisis arose in Pudmit. Because you first had Atriel seeming to be distant and not really caring about the individual personalities of the township, and Miriam as one of the folks. And then when Crisis struck, there was an inversion in their roles, where Miriam was driving the people to be going back into the mines carelessly, and Atriel was more concerned about the well-being of the people. So that was really fun to play out. From Leonard's perspective, he has seen aristocrats a dime a dozen, so he kind of knows to just kind of stay out of their way, because their little power games just get you caught up and screwed. So just kind of stay apart from all of that. So that's how I played him.
For me, like as a player, when I see these two NPCs, I'm thinking, okay, so we got what could be like tropes here. Like we got like the hard-working lady and the like aristocratic guy. And then in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, Josh would expect me to think like that. So I start playing a game of like switching cups on where these characters kind of are. Like, is he trying to juke me on these guys? But from the perspective of my own character, Jaeger, he was more concerned with these people not stabbing him the second he turned around because he thought everyone had that potential. So when it came to these people themselves, he was less in tune with their personalities, their wants and needs, and more with them physically and in the moment. So he really just ended up falling in a very neutral space with both of these characters.
I guess that's probably the best way. That I mean, I tried to play them so they had a pretty good breadth, and I'm glad that I got at least through to a couple, or to at least to Leonard, that he noticed that I tried to give them more than just tropes. But
Yeah.
Any other questions for me, or am I going to hand you off to these two players?
Well, I guess I could ask about, not just the NPCs, but of course, any enemies that you guys have encountered in the campaign. What is the coolest, most interesting, or the one that caused the most trouble for the party?
Caused the most trouble. Yeah.
Justicars, I mean, there's no other answer.
Yeah. So for me, probably the strongest enemy they fought, they did not actually kill. But I guess I can't say that. The strongest enemy they fought wasn't actually supposed to be an enemy. It was a hole. Surprisingly.
Tell me about the hole.
Okay.
Driving that stake in deeper.
So, they were in the mines. The party was in the mines. They had met with a group of Myconids and were asked to get rid of some goblins. So, going through old mine shafts, old tunnels, I should say, part of the floor collapsed and it left a 35-foot hole that was, I don't know, 15, 20 feet across. No, 10 feet across. It was small, but it blocked the entirety of the passage. So, you had to go over the hole. Well, I put that in to kill, not to kill 15 minutes, but you know, like give them like a little bit, like somebody was gonna fall in the hole, and then they would have to get them out, and it just turned into an hour and a half of let's do this, fall back in the hole. I'm gonna try this. Now there's someone else in the hole. I'm gonna run around the wall and roll poorly, and now I'm in the hole. It got to the point where like people were it was just a cycle of like, let's get someone out, someone else falls back in the hole.
It was a Three Stooges skit, is what it was.
It was that was fantastic.
We had Wile E. Coyote moments of just us plummeting through the floor.
Yeah, it was just roll an athletics check to run around the wall, and it was like a 2. So it was like you just spiral down into the hole. Somebody else tried to like teleport, and their distance was off, so they teleported but couldn't get out of the hole, and then fell back into the hole. So
then we had to call a giant spider.
Yeah, our druid Tullen shifted into a spider and then was just ferrying people in and out of the hole.
I still fell off
once.
Nobody had a handy levitation spell or something.
I mean, they were you guys just level 4? So you guys were still level 4 at that point. So yeah,
3. Were we 3 or 4? I forget.
No, you were 4.
I think we were 4.
4? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we leveled up after the snail.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was the hole was definitely the hardest enemy.
Hardest to watch about how stupid we were.
That was rough. And then they did face in the last episode they faced the Justicars. In the episode before that, Kies, another player, totally threw my encounter on its head. As I had planned like a slow burn encounter where it was like waves of enemies you would have to fight your way in, and then you get down there and there's like a couple heavily armored people. Which is kind of good thing that they didn't, because we had two players go down.
Died.
Yeah, 2 players went down multiple times. So, and they were just, the enemies weren't really that strong. It was just a night of bad rolling for the players. I mean,
we've all had that. Yep.
We had a character that has like a +8, +9 to hit, and he was rolling like 4s and 5s, and it was like, I was like, oh, why are you guys like? I was actually rooting for bad rolls so that the players wouldn't die, because I was like, oh, if he hits him, that's it. This guy's gonna be dead again. We did have, but I like that encounter. I think that was probably the best encounter because the party really had to.
We had to work together.
Yeah, they functioned at a different level, rather than just normally they spread out and they kind of each do their own thing. There was close quarters. There was 3 very strong enemies, and they had to they were doing roles that weren't your traditional role. Our sorcerer was protecting the paladin, like up in front of these 2 big armored Justicars, these big armored, like they were paladins themselves, and we had a couple surprises in there, one from Jaeger, but it really allowed the party to do things that they weren't normally doing, as far as it forced them to really synergize in a way that I hadn't expected, and I think is really going to be cool to see in the future.
That's because we're totally tapped out on resources. All the spellcasters had already shot their slot. I'm going to go with that phrase. They had shot their slots. They were totally tapped out. Between the 3 or so spellcasters, all of them were down to just like 1 slot left on their spells. We were all just blown out by that point because we already had 2 encounters before that final battle.
Yeah, it was and a lot of our combat had been done very heavily by our druid, who shifts into like a large bear. Well, the hall was only 2 squares across, so 10 feet across. So when he shifted into this large creature, he's now like
the whole hallway.
He can't, like, there was no room for him to like get up in everybody's face. So it really force the party to go into different roles rather than just like the roles they had kind of fallen into at that point, which I thought was probably the best thing I'd seen.
So that kind of naturally leads into the last question that I had for everybody before we go into very specific character discussions. Is there a specific instance that you can think of where two characters synergized, I love that word, in a really, really cool way? Like two people used their individual skills and made them come together in a way that was really creative and improvised.
I think that's tough.
We're still working on combos.
Yeah, I think the best thing though was the way, and unfortunately they're two of the players that aren't here. Costo and Alejandro is probably the best. The sorceress being up front, kind of getting in everybody's face. Using her spell slots to cast shield to protect the paladin who has gone down 2 or 3 times, while she's like making a medicine check to heal him, stabilize him so he can like not die, and she's up front kind of protecting him, trying to draw the
sorcerer was just tanking the paladin. That's the weird inversion.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. Jaeger was doing a really good job too, kind of protecting. I don't want to say protecting, it's probably the best word.
Drawing aggro, maybe.
Yeah, he was kind of like getting it up in people. He's a crossbow user, so usually he's at a distance. He was right up in there, really trying to draw some of the aggro away from some of the other players. While Kies did his best job hiding.
Being useless.
Yeah, he didn't hit a single thing, but he was creating like lulls in the action, because he was disguised as a Justicar, so he was like using his natural like persuasion and deception
skills.
Yeah, to like cause, like lulls in the action, so there'd be like a round where nobody would do anything. The enemies wouldn't do anything until they were attacked again. So he was like causing these breaks to give people a chance to recover a little bit.
Very cool. All right. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say that, like, outside of combat, when it comes to RP, I think Alejandra takes the gold when it comes to character interactions, because her character is very much of like I see you have something going on, you want to talk about it.
She's the mom. That's her character. She's like, oh my god, what's going on with you? Are you okay? Do you need fed? You have a boo-boo. Let me clean that off. Oh, you got pooped on in the middle of the night. Let me take you down the stream and wash it.
Yeah. So her character really prompts a lot of really good like one-on-one interactions.
Outside of combat, I think the best moment I've seen so far though is the moment between Kies and Costo in the Goblin room, where Kies, he did use one of his abilities to kind of deceive one of the other party members. He was actually to charm one of the other party members, but it got him to open up about what was going on, and it was a really nice RP moment that really gave the party a nice window into the minds of some of the other characters, which
who typically wouldn't say things and kind of crowbarred their mouth open.
Yeah, he took the very stoic paladin and kind of forced him to spill the beans on how he felt. So that was, I think that was probably the best outside of combat synergistic moment between two characters that really led to the party bonding. I think it strengthened that bond within the party. So
Cool. Well, I'd love to delve into these kind of individual character discussions.
Well, I will pass you off to these two. The wonderful Emily Hall, everyone.
So let's stay on Alejandra. I'm interested. I understand that her kind of motherly bond may have spurred something a little inappropriate with one of the characters. This question is for Jake. and it is, how do you plan on handling Lucas's crush on Alejandra?
I'm going to try to steer him away from that because I don't want his poor little heart broken when I tell him that Alejandra is an elf and therefore 98 years old and is older than his grandmother would be.
Sounds like in character. Yeah. Fantastic. Let's see. I'm going to give one more question to you, Jake, before we move on to Jaeger. I'm going to kind of go back and forth. Now we're going on to Leonard. Can you tell us about the pressure Leonard feels to stay home with his family?
So Leonard is torn because of family obligations. It's called filial piety, I guess, is the phrase that goes with it. And he's torn with that and the fact that he also feels orphaned by his family. Because what happened was he was raised and he was told what to do all of his life. That includes learning how to play the violin. And when he became of age, which was roughly 15, 16 years old, his dad just shipped him off to Bardic College. No say in the matter whatsoever. And his family expects him to just come back and pop right back into his old role. No. That's not happening. So there's like these two conflicting pressures about being his own person and also respecting what the family needs. So he's kind of split in that coming of age kind of crisis that a lot of people coming out of college might feel, for instance.
Fascinating. And let's have one more question about Leonard before we move on. He had kind of a revelation recently about being an Aasimar. Why did it take so long for him to realize that he was one and then to reveal it to the rest of the party?
It's not like he was trying to hide it. He actually wasn't really aware of it because he's grown up pampered. He grew up in a middle class, from a lower middle class now to I suppose might be an upper middle class family, and he was pretty sheltered. And until real crisis hit, he never was put into a situation of intense stress and pressure that caused him to tap into these additional powers. He's had hints, he's had guesses that is part of his background, but he didn't really have any background to compare it to other than reading it in scrolls and books in a library. So he's aware of what they are, and he's got this weird thing going on with his hair, and his eyes are purple. But it's the fantasy land of Dungeons and Dragons. That's like everyday Joe's kind of thing. But there's also his weird fascination with food and how he's always driven towards that. So that's probably the connection between the diva angel and Leonard's subconscious and why he's so hooked on it. And I'm hoping to explore that connection a little bit further. But that, as well as tapping into his X gene, so to speak, and seeing if he can control his Aasimar capabilities as we adventure.
Cool. Something came to me as we were talking about that. Before our stream today, we were discussing how bards have come a long way since the earlier editions of the game. What are you able to do now as a bard that you maybe wouldn't have been able to do 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Cast spells. Like, they had a very, very limited set of capabilities. They were also half casters, I think, in 3rd edition. So now that in 5th edition they are full casters, and they actually have a decent spell list. Oddly enough, in 3rd edition, a lot of their capabilities were dependent upon their performance skill check, and in 5th edition, totally disconnected. It's not even part of it anymore. So like, I've got expertise in performance, and it's not being used all that much, which is fine. I'm okay with that because, you know, I try to find ways to inject that into the role play, and it comes in handy. But as far as performance causing the magic to happen, that's probably one of the biggest flavor disconnects between something from third edition bard to fifth edition bard. Fifth edition bard definitely more powerful, better lexicon of spells, full caster capability. Those are all great things, but just not linked to performance, I found a little strange.
And what is the coolest food-based magic? Just a singular instance that you have
Roleplay
done.
wise, I'm loving Goodberry. I keep changing the flavor of the Goodberry. So I just have to keep thinking of, okay, what's it going to taste like? Okay, today you're eating mac and cheese. Next time it's going to be like, this is going to taste like carrot cake was another one that I did with the party. And I just have to keep thinking of fun snack foods and having to try to describe them in ways that the fantasy land of like a Western medieval world would not have encountered, because I have to think about what foods have they run into, because for instance they don't have noodles really in medieval Europe in that kind of realm time.
Interesting. Okay, we're going to go over to Tim now, talk a little bit about Jaeger. This is mostly about the fight that happened in episode 9, so we're just going to kind of focus on that. What were Jaeger's thoughts going into this fight?
Well, first off, he didn't want to have this be a fight at all. He kind of just wanted everyone to be able to talk things out and go on their way. That's at least what his hopes were. He tries to always be ready for what could happen, but in this instance, he very much did not want this to happen.
Okay. Now, he had a huge personality shift while this was happening. Tell us about that, and how did it affect the combat strategy that you used?
Yeah. So when the combat first started out and we were kind of doing okay, I was having Jaeger be kind of restrained and holding back. He has a bit of a complex about fighting humans. Being a warforged built for, some ancient war, he is primarily all about fighting monsters. To the point where he has actually never engaged with humans mortally, like to the death. So for that first half of the fight, he tried everything he could to not get lethal. But when things started going south and he realized that he couldn't affect the combat flow, he began to disassociate, actually, to the point where he kind of receded into the backspaces of his own mind and just allowed instincts to take over. And so that is, in fact, the shift that you see kind of gradually throughout the fight, is that he's allowing his body just to move on its own, and kind of reverting back to, I would say, like factory settings, to when the war was in full swing all those thousands of years ago. So you'll see the moment where I have my crossbow trained on the guy and I say, don't make me do this. It's the point where he actually has to make the action of firing that crossbow at another person that makes him crack.
Yeah.
And then from there on, he kind of loses all cognizant abilities and is on a pure path of trying to survive.
Yeah. Say that shift is definitely a survival instinct kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Basically, he, at that point, I just want to comment real quick. For me, I was seeing it as like Windows OS was gone and we're down to like CMOS. It was just like the base BIOS layer underneath.
Yeah.
It was really awesome to watch happen. And great voice choice.
I also have to ask, how did the other members of the party perceive that change? Was it a purely positive thing in your eyes, or was there a little bit of conflict?
You're asking me, or? Or Tim?
Well, I guess I don't know if Tim plays any other characters.
No, I guess from my point, like I want the other characters to notice to kind of like spur on some more interpersonal, like intercharacter conversation. But if the other players choose to not really touch on it, then that is definitely something that I can have Jaeger internalize alone, which of course will likely not be healthy. But then again, how else will you develop a character?
Yeah, very true. So, how did Jaeger perceive the missing time after the fight was over?
Currently, he thinks he got hit and went down. He thinks that he got like knocked out from someone hitting him. He is not aware that he continued fighting after that point. There was also like a little bit of residual of that personality shift where he called the druid Tullen another name and didn't realize. Called him Morph.
And is that something coming back from a flashback?
Not a flashback that the party has seen. No.
Okay. So, without delving too far into spoilery future territory, how do you anticipate he's going to process these new changes in his personality? And how do you think he'll react upon learning what happened during that time that he was knocked out?
I suspect that the next, at least like maybe the next time it happens, if it happens in any kind of recent manner, hopefully someone will tell him about what's going on, to which then he'll feel kind of, let's say, like dirtied, because he already has a loose grip on where morality and like basic etiquette is. So when he already has one hard feeling, I don't want to hurt people, and then finds out that he is doing that without his own knowledge, I think there's going to be a very depressive state in his future.
Are there any other party members based on their backgrounds or personalities that you think would be most helpful, or some that would be least helpful in helping the character through that?
Most helpful, I could see Alejandra simply being sympathetic. But that would be kind of topical, not really getting down to the issue. I have hope that Costo could be a helping figure there, but in my mind, the player, I think Costo has so much of his own stuff to deal with that maybe he would not handle helping someone else through similar issues.
Yeah, maybe the empathy's there, but the space to handle it's not quite there.
So currently, I think that maybe Cypher is probably the most. I can't find the word, but is poised to be the one to probably help him out the most, because first of all, we don't know a lot about Cypher. There's a lot of
mystery. He's a cipher.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery. Yeah. But I could definitely see some kind of like kinship between Cypher and Jaeger coming from kind of like Jaeger confiding in Cypher, mostly because he doesn't talk a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of where the positive of that would be. And then when it comes to people who would definitely like not have any positive impact at all in Jaeger's mind would be Leonard and Kies. Leonard, yeah. Leonard already has shown that he has not a lot of experience in very heavy topics like murder. Like he popped his avatar. ASMR abilities out when we were simply fighting undead.
I got shot.
That is true. So the first time he gets shot, he finds out something new about himself. So Jaeger will probably see that as like he's probably not experienced enough to help me.
That's a common bard thing, right? Is to know the stories about combat and loss and grief, but not having quite a lot of hands-on experience about that.
Yeah. And then Kies one, Jaeger would probably think, oh, he doesn't know about this kind of topic. Like, he'll talk a lot but say nothing. And then there's probably also a little bit that Jaeger is worried that Kies might, like, unfoundedly, like, he has no reason to believe this, but he might think that Kies will trivialize Jaeger's experiences, and he doesn't want that to happen. And this all really just stems from the little amount of time that the party's been together. So that will eventually expand out once we interact more.
Yeah, that sounds like just a whole... Everything could happen with character development. That is going to be really fascinating to watch. Let's go back to Jake for a little bit and talk a little bit about Lucas. Are you going to support or dissuade his want to be an adventurer?
Dissuade for sure, because I can't go adventuring if he goes adventuring too. Someone's got to watch out for the parents, so I'm just dumping it on him, as an older sibling is supposed to do.
All right, and another question about him. What are your thoughts on the interaction the party is having with him?
Oh God. They seriously, that wagon ride back from the farm where they were about to emotionally scar him. One, keep Lucas away from the sociopathic Warforged, where he just does not understand the social norms for how a 13-year-old is supposed to see things, and keep Keese away, because Keese just wants to stir up all kinds of trouble for the heck of it. Yeah, definitely keeping him away from them. Letting Lucas have a crush on Alejandra, I have no problems with. That'll be Alejandra's issue to deal with. But I don't want his little heart being broken. It just would cause him to get into all kinds of trouble, because 13-year-old boys and just don't know what to do with themselves. It just becomes... I could see him getting into all kinds of trouble, going places where he shouldn't go, like following Leonard, falling behind on him, and then getting himself hurt or into some sort of situation. And then my parents will be pissed at me. So that's where I'm coming from. Keep Lucas safe so my parents don't get pissed at me. So I can go do my own thing, because I'm a grown-up 18-year-old now.
But of course, him getting into trouble, that could be tons of fun. For the
I know
party
everything.
to rescue him.
I know everything, and I can get myself out of trouble, no problem. That's why I connected with some big brawny people in the party.
Excellent. Okay, let's see. I think I went through all of the questions that Josh gave me anyway. Let me take a look at if I had any questions that were kind of general for everybody.
And I'm reading in the Twitch chat, no, I don't want Luke to make a pact with the Fiend or a pact with anything. That is exactly what I do not want Lucas to get into. That's exactly the kind of thing I don't want him to do. And that's also because Lucas wants to go adventuring for adventuring's sake. Leonard does not want to do that. He's actually not on a quest for adventuring's sake. His objective is to find foods that will connect the world. He wants to go out and connect cultures. He wants to use food as a bridge between people, as a way to explore the meaning of life, so to speak, and the metaphors that go with it. I've heard that a lot.
Okay, well, I had a couple more questions that either of you can answer just about your characters. Obviously, both of the characters have had some big revelations about themselves, big personality changes, maybe goal changes. How has what happened in the campaign so far made you kind of reassess either your purpose, your goals, or your traits, combat style, anything about that? How have those changed in the last, in the short time that you guys have been together?
When I first came up with the idea of Jaeger being a archer, I had mostly thought of him to be kind of at a distance and kind of just being support. But what quickly was realized is he finds a lot more use kind of back to back with the people around him. And that can also be a reflection of how he is developing outside of fighting. Because when we first meet Jaeger, he barricades himself inside a room and tries to lock himself away from the potential harm that could come his way because he's new to a world, and immediately after waking up, he was assaulted. So that kind of like snowballed all the way up until we meet him.
We really should talk about that at some point. Why is he so paranoid? And what did happen day one?
That you'll have to find out. But so when he starts to realize like these people, at least for now, don't have, or excuse me, hasn't shown any hostility towards him, despite him saying weird things out of place, or generally just not being very couth. He finds a lot of confidence that they'll be there to protect him as well, which is why he has been getting a little bit closer in the combat, because he feels like these people, at least for now, are like starting to work as a team. So
like,
he's gained, this is like his first gleam of confidence.
Like when I smashed my good berries in your face? That sounded different in my head.
However, a magical good berry works on a Warforged, I appreciate it nonetheless. Jaeger in that moment, I mean, he was up and down during that last combat, but still kept pushing forward because he knew that, at least subconsciously, he knew that the people around him were not going to be safe until the other people that, the other, like, enemies were dead. So he is at a point where he's like, not only should I protect myself, but if I protect them as well, then we're all safer.
Excellent. So what about Leonard? Finding out that he's an Aasimar, is that going to have an impact on his family and whether he wants to stay with them more or less?
Probably less. So this actually evolved during gameplay. It didn't really creep up on me, the realization that throughout the early episodes, I never used any of Leonard's Aasimar capabilities really. Like he didn't go Nova, so to speak, until episode 8 or so, 7 actually, until episode 7. And I was like, wow, this is actually a pretty cool moment to change up the narrative for Leonard a little bit and say that he did not know he was an Aasimar until that moment. And now I have to start expanding upon the history of Leonard's understanding of himself being an Aasimar. So I want to probably take that opportunity to possibly have some sort of dialogue with his diva, for instance, or symbology and reading into the symbologies thereof, that would drive Leonard towards a kind of holy quest or personal quest of some sort that is forcing him away from his family, because he cannot do these greater things, Leonard may imagine, being stuck in a family restaurant, because you're in one location but what could possibly happen there, other than strange passerbys coming through the restaurant. So Leonard has to go out to do these things, even though whatever that end goal destination is, he does not know. But it is, again, being driven by a third party, by that diva, who he has yet to have a conversation with. And I'm going to probably have to talk to Costo about that, because apparently he had some dialogue with his diva. And I had no idea you could do that, because when I read it in the Player's Handbook, Azamars have communications with their divas in dream sequences or with symbology. So I interpreted it different. So the fact you can have a direct one-on-one conversation is either rare or just not written as much, is how I'm interpreting it. And for those of you out there that are watching, if any of that is me misreading the Player's Handbook, that's totally fine. I'm willing to accept that. But just a different spin on it is always what's fun about these RPGs. Different interpretations.
So the last question that I have for both of you as characters is, whatever you feel free sharing, how has your own personality leaked into the character a little bit? I mean, it's always fun kind of recognizing pieces of a character in yourself. Do you have any personal experiences that have kind of inspired the character, or did you just create them out of a vacuum? Feel free to share.
Not to get too into it, but I kind of had an idea for Jaeger back when he was basically an entirely different character, that what then became the foundation for this, to have a bit of a crisis in multiple places, a crisis in morality, a crisis in like his mind, and kind of like a crisis in identity. And me personally, I have struggled like finding my place, like as a man within the world and stuff like that. And so throughout my own journey of discovering my like quote unquote true self, I take that journey and implant it into Jaeger, where he is now on a quest to discover what he was. And eventually, whenever he gets to a point where he either fully understands, or for the most part understands, where he came from, he then has the choice of choosing where he goes. Because right now he's very dependent on where he came from and what lies in his past. He's always questioning, like, where have I come from? What did I do? Like, is there people out there who know me and I don't remember them? But once he gets past all that, the true discovery will be who he decides to become.
Thank you so much.
As for Leonard and how much of that intercrosses with myself, I'd actually have to say a little bit of what you guys are seeing right now in the current episodes of Leonard conflicted with his family, is that for most of my life, it was the expectation that I was going to be a doctor. So like I've hardcore nerd into studying all kinds of medical stuff when, I don't know, I'd have to say starting from 5th grade all the way up through college. And in college, I got more experience in lab work, etc., and also being around professional doctors and what their personal lives were like. It was just something that really didn't appeal to me, and I decided to switch tactics, switch career paths, and become a teacher, which I'm very happy for. But there was definitely this conflicting discussion with my father about, you have to be a doctor. I'm like, no, I don't. Or you have to be a pharmacist. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to be a teacher. This is my thing. This is what I know. This is what I can do. So that's actually where I was, like, right when I was getting out of college. And that's kind of where I placed Leonard in the campaign setting, where he finished up college, and he is expected to go back to the family business, but he just doesn't want to because his awareness is just greater. So that's kind of where I placed Leonard. I want to see how it plays out in the campaign, and will there be continuing internal conflict and turmoil for Leonard, deciding between a bigger path versus a personal family responsibility. We'll have to see. But that was just something. I mean, I've already come out of my tunnel in that regard, but it would be interesting to see how this RPs across the campaign. Just kind of like, I don't know, like this very, very small aspect of my life in a parallel universe.
Very cool. I love both of those answers. Yeah.
And by the way, Josh, no, you are not my personal psychologist and therapist for this, so don't worry about that. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
You are for me, so get ready.
I know, I'm like, when I asked that question, it could have gone a lot of different ways. So, so I guess I'm not looking at the chat on the Twitch right now. But if there's any questions that the audience has, I guess we could send it over there. I guess I should have that up.
It's looking like Mickey wants to mess with my kid brother Lucas. He wants him to become a fiend warlock and become the big bad evil guy to send Leonard to hell. So, no, that's not happening.
Well, look, I mean,
at least I hope not.
Faith within the world of D&D is the quickest path to power. So, just get that boy in church.
And it's because of party members like Keith that most adventurers do not have families and are 90% orphans.
Right. So, Josh, did you have any other questions? Or I guess I could just open it up to anything that you guys want to share that I have not specifically prompted yet.
Well, I did have a question for Jaeger. How do you plan on bringing that personality shift up to the party if they don't catch on?
So it's something that I would not want to. Well, first of all, like Jaeger is kind of only semi-conscious about it. So maybe after like the second or third time that it happens, Jaeger will kind of really start digging into what is happening to me. And then he'll start asking the party, like, what is going on? I think there's a pattern here. So that really just hinges on if the party is not either interested or is picking up on it. And mostly it's like, in my mind, his struggle is a little subtle, mostly because he does not express himself the same way that other people do. His face literally does not emote. So someone could look at him and he would, if he were angry or sad, he would look the same. So if it gets to the point where Jaeger's the first one to notice, he will confide in the party and seek answers. But if the party is the one to ask him, he will kind of ask them to help him discover more about himself so that everyone could learn together. So,
based off of what I've seen in our session so far, the word that comes to mind about Jaeger's behavior with his personality shift in that combat is dissociative break, where he has a complete shutdown of one part of his personality and an alternative personality pops in. Because I'm like looking at the phrasing for dissociation, and I am not a licensed therapist or anything like that. I just want to make that absolutely clear. But it just seems like he has a lot of the symptoms of dissociation. Mm-hmm. And he definitely has like a very, very traumatic background from what has been revealed in session. And that will be very, very interesting to peel back and hopefully repair with Jaeger's psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose there's always the possibility of those two personalities diverging a little bit more and more and more.
Absolutely. My like root idea for this whole reverting to the original idea with Jaeger is the concept of if you take someone and erase their entire memory and then allow them to keep living, are they the same person because now they have new memories? So while it is still all Jaeger, and it in a way it's very different to like multiple personalities, it is just different versions of him that have different experiences, kind of fighting within his mind to kind of repair the lost time that he was deactivated for. So in that moment of panic and like moral shutdown where he had to fire on a human, he reverted to what he knew most, and that was just simply killing.
Makes me think of Freud, which was like 90% wrong about everything he proposed. But he proposed those 3 segments of personality: ego, superego, and id. So if you erase the superego and you have just the id and the ego, is it the same person? So that's kind of what Jaeger is dealing with.
That is a very... It's been fun as a DM to see the evolution of especially Jaeger's personality, because he came in so blank slate, I guess I could say. And as he like finds out stuff about himself, and some of the history of the world is kind of brought to light through these flashbacks that Jaeger gets. How his personality evolves and grows, and how he's really changing from who he thought he, I guess who he thought he was to who he is becoming. Is really it's really fun to watch as like a DM looking in, because as that character grows and really steps into himself, it's just a lot of fun compared to a lot of characters that know who they are. Jaeger being so I'm gonna say moldable, but things leave their impression on him and he grows with that, rather than people who already have been through a lot and it kind of they're looking at events through like a very specific filter, where Jaeger is seeing some things for the first time and developing those filters.
Yeah, he has no preconceived notions on any situations that he would come across, especially in those first couple days. But what we're seeing kind of now is when we first met him, he was scared, afraid, and knew nothing, met these people, saw that they occasionally laughed at what he was saying. He's like, oh, I've got something that I can do here. I can stick around as long as I keep these people entertained. And so that kind of came into where he was intentionally trying to be comical. But now he has enough time in their couple of days of travel, especially coming out of the first town, where he's realizing, oh, I was not really, that's not me. That was just something I was doing to make sure that I could stay around. And so now he's kind of in a point where like he's laying the bricks of his own personality day by day.
And he's been awake for how many days? Like 14?
Like straight up, yeah, like 14.
He wasn't born yesterday, but he was born 2 weeks ago.
You know how like a kid, like a baby will do something, you'll laugh, and then they'll immediately do it again. That's kind of like the behavior that Jaeger had in those first couple days.
I will say this much, Tim. I'm very glad you didn't go with the 5-year-old response to everything that people do and go, why? Why?
Let me make a new character who's actually just a 5-year-old.
We're not doing that. Not putting a 5-year-old in combat. We're not doing it.
A very traumatized 5-year-old.
I'm an ancient lich stuck in the body of an infant. But yeah, that's just kind of like the progression of what we're seeing here, and we got a lot more to look forward to.
Very cool. I have just loved learning about these characters and learning about kind of what makes them tick.
It's been I have to agree with you. It's been a very, very wonderful experience to see them from across the screen, see them really, after working with them to build the character concepts, I thought I had an idea of what the play would be like, and then you get in and it's the characters grew into the players, I should say, grew into the characters very quickly. Really took up that mantle of being that character very, very well, and they took it to heart. So they're not just playing a character, they're emotionally invested, or they're faking it really well. So
I have deceived you all. Yeah, I mean, no person goes into playing a new character and knows exactly how to play them or 100% of how much of this character they themselves understand. So we're very much in a sweet spot of this game where we are finding our roots.
And I think that's true for all players everywhere when they are playing any kind of role-playing system, but we just happen to be using D&D, is that all characters that we create are just slivers, fragments of who we are at some level internally, and that we are just using a safe place of a role-playing game to just kind of expand on and explore aspects that we typically couldn't do. And that's the fun part about it, because it allows us to kind of expand who we are individually and let us do the things that we couldn't otherwise or missed the opportunity to do.
So I do have a question for Emily. Tell us about your D&D experience.
Oh,
Well-
flipped interview.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm a comic being heckled and then heckling the audience. Well, it's been all online. We haven't met in person yet. Oh, we've all met each other in person, but only over dinner. We've only been playing online. We haven't done any video, which is probably good because we experience internet issues all the time anyway. The video would just... Oh, and as I'm saying that, I'm experiencing internet issues. The
internet
fairies are listening to me, knock on wood. And so we have, let's see, I think I'm the only person in the party thus far. No, there's a couple people who only play one person, but a few of us have started playing multiple characters. We have the core group is a barbarian, a druid, a bard, and a rogue. A few of us, friends who I know from the theater that we all work on in Ojai, we kind of got together with some more seasoned veterans of the game. So it's been an interesting process. Those of us who are not super familiar with it, learning everything. And then, of course, every time we encounter a new enemy that's like, an actual part of the D&D universe, but that we don't know about personally. And the other two guys are like, I know what this is and what makes them tick, but we don't know. So that's been a really fun part of the game, is kind of watching us stumble and figure it out. And I think we're only level 5 or 6 at this point. So we're just, we're taking it nice and slow, just kind of learning the characters, learning the game mechanics. We've been playing over Fantasy Grounds.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one.
I got a copy of that.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun. And of course, learning all the stuff that the bard can do. We were talking before about how the bard has all these crazy abilities now. And I have an instrument of the bards in our campaign. So that gives me like 7 random spells that I never would have gotten.
Josh, you taking notes there, buddy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And I'm also a little bit of an orphan character. So I have yet to meet my dad in the game, but I think he's going to be a character. Yeah.
I think the rule is. Sorry, go ahead.
After you, Tim.
Yeah, I think the rule is to being an adventurer, you have to lose at least one family member to really be a hero. So, Leonard, watch out.
Hey, leave my family alone. I'm not gonna Batman the situation, all right?
I will be your
Leave them anyway.
Listen, there is something amazing about being a new player. I wish that I could go back to having that, like, not knowing all the monsters and learning, seeing things for the first time, because there's something really fantastic about that. So enjoy that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I find myself, my personality comes through so often in the game. I'm like a very overly trusting person, and that has always been a problem when we're meeting somebody who's deceiving us. Like last session, I just walked up to a monster and started trying to talk to it, and then of course, combat situation, right off the bat. So my character has to become a little bit more cynical, I suppose.
Pragmatic. If it's drooling with long fangs and long claws that are bleeding, probably don't want to start a conversation with it.
give it a hug.
I think that's just human nature. I mean, we as humans have, like, domesticated things that would eat us normally.
Like wolves.
Well, I'm thinking of the people that are like, this is my pet lion, and then it, like, jumps up and hugs them, and I'm like, that could eat a person right now, and you're, like, rolling around in the grass with it. So
There are more
Yeah.
tigers in Texas than the rest of the entire world.
Yeah. This is my pet monkey. Oh, I'm so surprised that it bit my face off. Mm-hmm. Come on, people.
yeah.
For the people who climb into the zoos, into the zoo cages to get a better selfie.
Rip my boy Harambe.
R.I.P.
Yeah, I do think that's just human nature. Like, well, I'm gonna go pet that thing. Like, it looks fluffy, so here we go. Because that's how we have dogs and cats, and we just have all kinds of creatures that we probably shouldn't own, keep in our house with us as pets. But
For some reason, people think it's okay to, like, walk up to grizzly bears. Like, it's not going to give you a hug.
And their fur is not actually soft. So
I just like
you don't want any part of that.
It's the level of surprise that always got me. Like, he was eaten by the bear that he slept next to all winter. Like, no.
That's the next one shot.
That's the next Darwin Award.
It's a zoo break.
Do you remember the E-Trade baby commercials? He's like, this is my shock face. What? That's kind of how I feel all the time.
And then you add in the fantastical creatures of Dungeons and Dragons, and then every purse suddenly or bag just is not as friendly as you thought.
Yeah, one of our characters stuck their hand in a bag that began to eat them. So,
Josh.
yes.
Yeah, we had a doorknob that did that.
Yeah. If we had rolled as poorly as we did in the last fight when saving Alejandra,
She'd be dead now.
Would you have pulled the trigger on killing her character in the same session she was introduced?
Yes.
One-shot NPC is what you would wind up being.
I would have probably given a way to revive her, but I'm not. I've played no death campaigns or soft campaigns, whatever they call them. They're not as fun for the players because there's no sense of danger. There's no, like, you can walk into any fight like, well, I'm not gonna die. So I think that, like, if you start pulling that back, if you pull the danger back too far, it becomes.
And everyone's got
fun.
plot armor.
Yeah. But at the same time, I also try to balance it so that, like, someone's not dying every time you go into combat, because then it's like, why would we fight that and not just run and hide?
Just keep making fights like the Justicars, and we'll just simply defeat ourselves, and you can feel confident about yourself.
Listen, I did not think that you would roll that poorly as a collective.
Yeah.
that fight, first of all, would take 3 hours, or second of all, would down it. There were five. What was it? 5 separate downs in that.
I think I went down twice.
Yeah,
and
Costa went
times.
3 times.
So yeah, I mean, like, you guys were going down, getting back up, which was okay, but there was never like a momentary pause to heal. It was like, I'm up with 1 hit point, I'm gonna attack. And I was like, just please don't. You're in front of him and you're getting hit. Like, it was.
Yeah.
It was
One casting of Goodberry saved the party like 2-3 times.
There was a moment in that fight where there was a bit of a pause where we had the decision to either try to cut and run or keep fighting. And in the state that Jaeger was, I had to make the hard decision to fire my arrow again. Because he was just in that state. I, as a player, knew that was a horrible choice. But I couldn't justify Jaeger not continuing forward.
As a player, I knew what was going through your head, and I respect that you kept on with the RP. But from Leonard's perspective, he was just going out of his mind, going, why aren't we getting out of this and going backwards and just leaving this space? Our tank is down, and you keep firing point blank. That was Leonard's perspective.
He is rolling really high on that persuasion check. I was like, okay, there's a little bit of goodwill here. Here's your chance to take your wounded and go. And
right.
I was like, I did not.
Bloodlusted.
Yeah, well, I had 2 characters that were like,
that.
no, we're finishing this. Even if he's unconscious, we're either they're dying or we're dying. That's the only 2 things that are going to happen.
And Tolan got his taste for blood, and he just kept on going.
He craves man flesh now.
But yeah, so it was. I mean, I gave you guys the window and told you you can either go through it or not. And
unfortunately, it was just my turn next.
This does raise the question: if a druid shapeshifts into an animal and eats a person, is it cannibalism?
Nope. I'm gonna say no.
It is. It is not good.
They still have their mind. They have
right?
memories.
That's a conscious decision right there.
Yeah, well.
But he's a halfling, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
no, it wouldn't be cannibalism to eat a human.
It'll be a very
What if
gray
you ate another
area.
halfling?
That'd be a snack.
I mean, it'd be bite size.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the combat from an RP perspective went really well, and
Yeah.
I was really pleased with the way that it went RP wise. Even the not taking the chance to cut and run, I think, went really well. It was just very. It's a way to say it. I was honestly preparing for a TPK at that point.
Yep.
I was like, this could be the end of this party, and we're 8-9 sessions in.
And we're gonna have to build a whole new party.
I was like, this is it.
I was feeling that too.
We just got those nice character arts. We're going to throw it away.
Yeah.
Here we go again, folks.
I was like, what can I do with these guys that they're gonna survive getting knocked out by these guys? Like, in my head, I was like, I need to have a prepared for a total party kill.
Jail arc.
Yeah, like,
Meanwhile, in Pudmit, another party shows up.
Oh god, I couldn't do it.
being it was early, I was like, maybe they'll just wake up in a dungeon and we'll go from there, and I'll just scrap the next 15 sessions I had planned and put them somewhere else.
That's what you get for playing 15 sessions ahead.
Be like, yep, see all these notes, bye. But no, it was D&D's like that. It can turn on a roll. So I was
Several.
I just had that experience with another game that Jake is in, where they parlayed with what I thought was just going to be a random encounter and ended up going to a whole nother area of the game that I was like, okay, we're doing this now. This is great.
That's just DMing. The DMing in a nutshell is prepare for any. I almost tell new GMs not to prepare as much as you think you should, because no matter what you prepare, they're going to be like, oh, See that guy with the big yellow arrow over his head that says "Talk to me"? Yeah, I want to talk to that goblin beside him.
Yeah.
And see what he has to
Rule
say.
of thumb would be, whatever you prepare, expect 1/3 of it to be covered.
Oh, I'm not even that much. Unless you're starting in combat, it's you guys cover like 1/10 of what I have.
And for anybody that's starting in the teacher profession, DMing while you're learning to be a teacher in college is a great way to learn classroom management and how
I
to
agree.
lesson plan.
I'm also a teacher. I'm a music teacher.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was just about to say it's kind of the same with teaching. You don't want to
Yes.
over prepare because there's going to be 15 minutes of ruckus somewhere in there.
Because Tim's, little Timmy's going to go into kill mode and then just shoot somebody in the head.
Well, if you call me Little Timmy again, then yeah.
I was an instructor in the military, and if you think children are bad, you should try teaching adults.
Oh, God.
Ego is a thing.
No, it's not just that. It's like you get the most random questions, more so than high school kids. You're like, how did you think of that? Like, why would you? Like, who thinks of that? Do you need help? Like, are you okay? It's 48 minutes of an hour class. It's just that. So, what are you gonna do? But, do we have anything else? Do you have any more questions for us?
I got through all of my questions. I was, probably should have thought of some more on the fly, but you guys covered the campaign itself, kind of changes, adaptations that you guys have made, what the characters have just gone through, what they're anticipating going through. That was all really fascinating to hear.
Do you guys have questions for each other?
I was about to throw one out there. Yeah. For Tim, what do you see Jaeger's happy place to be? Like, what would be his final resting mind frame? Like, what would be a happy ending for Jaeger?
So,
not to say that Josh is going to put you there. He'll probably put you on the opposite side of that. But what would be a happy place for Jaeger?
Jaeger currently, in his mind, there is a lot of noise. There's a lot of confusion and just loud static that kind of muffles his actual thoughts. He has to wade through the garbage to get to where he's going. So I think just some either a mindset or a physical place of quiet, and kind of being one with his surroundings in silence is what he would need. He doesn't realize that that's what he needs, but that would be probably what would be most therapeutic for him is quiet.
I'm hearing multi-class monk.
I simply
I'm
need
joking.
to be able to cast silence on myself so I can stop listening to the rest of you.
That was great. Have you ever played Overwatch? Because I feel some Bastion vibes going on here.
I was just about to say.
Pure happenstance. I played Overwatch briefly when it first came out, realized that I did not like it whatsoever because I got way too mad. And promptly dropped it after the first year that it came out. But there are strong similar themes where I guess God dang it, Josh, why did you have to bring that up? It's too close.
I know. While you were explaining everything, I the vision of the animatic with Bastion was playing through my head.
I'm a fraud. I retire from D&D forever. I cannot come up with any original idea. But yes, Bastion with the ability to understand that he has issues.
But it's opposite Bastion, right? Because Bastion was designed to kill people.
Jaeger was as well. Not exactly people. Well, yeah, I guess you do have that point. Bastion was directly designed to kill humans, where Jaeger was designed to kill monsters. But the themes are 1-to-1, and I must pay the creators of Overwatch now because I've clearly plagiarized their work.
Was that intentional, or did that just happen like that?
Absolutely not. I have not thought about Overwatch in like 2 years.
I think that's a pretty common sci-fi trope, though. I mean, Overwatch didn't. The
They
idea
definitely
of
weren't the first one to come up with that.
Yeah. But like when it comes to inspiration for Jaeger, like Terminator, Commander Data from Star Trek, a lot of Data from Star Trek is in his personality, where he is kind of lost on the like etiquette of interactions,
Subtleties.
the subtleties, and also kind of the conversation of whether or not he is a true living being is something that I would like to explore later on in the campaign. There is the setup there within the backstory for that. Josh simply has to pull the trigger on it.
See a little bit of 7 of 9 from Voyager too.
I never watched that part of Star Trek.
She's kind of like evil Data to me. Well, there is an actual evil Data.
She was Borg, right? She was
Yeah.
converted Borg. Yeah. That's interesting because she was human and then became integrated and then came out of it. So that's a wild dynamic in of itself. But yeah, Jaeger is in kind of in a way kind of like a reverse Terminator, where he came from the past and not physically time traveled, but like his mind has time traveled in a way, where he is in this space now somewhere entirely different, and there's a mission out there for him to discover. He just has to first discover it.
It looks like we have a request from Mickey, who plays Keys. Can everyone, including Emily, just go around and say something nice about Keys?
We'll let Emily start.
Keys first, and I'll come up with something.
I'll start with one. Keys, you've got a nice cane. The end.
Kia says he has what's the best way to say it? He has such a way with words, just saying something all the time. Not always the right thing, not always the wrong thing, but he has like he's can get vocally involved in everything.
Jaeger doesn't understand what would be good about Kia, so he doesn't really know. But he is useful in combat. No. Kias is a good, for one, a good talker, and he is great at getting the party out of tough situations, especially in our last couple sessions. If we did not have Kias, we would all be dead twice over.
We say that again? We can't hear you.
Whoops, sorry, I was muted. Is he the peace face of the party, or is he?
He's
No.
the face of the party.
A face. We've got three.
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
he has a
He's the
great
Loki of
accent.
the party.
Oh, he's the trick face. Okay. I can relate to that. I don't know enough about him to say anything nice, but
His accent is
I feel like
phenomenal.
kindred spirit in him.
His accent is phenomenal too. He sounds like the Count from Sesame Street a little bit.
One Eldritch Blast. Two Eldritch Blast.
Yeah, it seems like we've had the characters here who are not necessarily his biggest fans as characters. So I've heard a lot of trash talking.
Kies
Sorry
is
about that.
Kies's biggest fan.
Right. That's always the case. From a player perspective, I love what Mickey does with Keys, because it drives the narrative forward. You don't know what direction it's going to go. You don't know if it's even in a better direction, but it is fun to watch.
I want to see a buddy cop movie with Costo and Kies.
Oh, that would be good.
Yes.
Where
Yes.
Costo is the 10 days from retirement police officer, and Kies is the drug dealer informant that they gotta like bust a gang with.
Yeah.
I'm imagining the 80s movie action poster right now in my head.
For instance, Emily, Kies, Lucas developed this crush on Alejandra. She's the only female in the party. She's also she made her character very pretty, very outgoing and talkative. Yeah, so she's very outgoing and talkative. And she, when Jaeger said to the kid, "You want to be an adventurer, be prepared for everyone you know to die," she was like, "Oh no, let me focus all my attention to keep you distracted," which was very in line with her character. But so this Lucas developed a small crush on her. Well, Kies decided, noticing this, to when Lucas left and said goodbye very specifically to Alejandra, Kies says, in return, like whispers in his mind, "I'll see you later." To kind of play that up. So he's very, what's the way to say it?
He likes to stir the pot.
Yeah.
He's a pot. He's an instigator.
Meddling.
That's the word. He's an instigator.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not sure which direction that's going to go, but we know it's going to go somewhere.
Exactly.
If D&D had a karma meter, it'd just be like boom, 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 left to right with this guy.
Does something fantastic, does something not so fantastic.
Yeah.
And one of the things I appreciate about the makeup of our group is that it is different from a lot of different tropes. Typically, when you think warlock, you think maybe dark, brooding, maybe insane. But that goes to Jaeger, the Warforged, you know?
The fighter.
Not the insane part, right? But definitely dark and brooding. And you think the bard's going to be the one that causes all sorts of shenanigans, and this time it goes to the warlock, and so on and so forth. So a lot of that is how we are driving the narrative and experiences with each other, and it's just refreshing, because other like Critical Role, they've done some fantastic stuff. I've said this before, and they broke a lot of ground. But we've seen that. This is something different. This is something new, and we are definitely enjoying breaking some expectations in a good way and showing alternative methods of seeing characters done.
That is a great thing from a DM too, to see the different, the way people are taking their normal character class and treating it very differently than a lot of the stuff I've seen over the years. And to the few characters that actually fall into those types of tropes that you commonly think with that, they're playing them in a way that they're not trying to be edgy or the dark brooding, I don't get along with anyone. Ooh, we lost someone.
This has happened on Botched Rolls before, people.
Yes,
We
it has.
are totally okay with that.
I'll come
And
this way.
Josh is experiencing Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where he is in two places at one time.
Like this.
How fortunate that to name our brand after mistakes, because this is just reinforcing it.
Oh,
That's
yes.
okay, folks. We're just gonna roll with the botch.
Yes, this happens all the time, unfortunately, especially when you come into tech. She did say she was having internet issues, so just lean way over here.
Yeah, just lean closer to your mic.
So
It technically works.
yes, it does. I don't think we have anything else for today, though. Do we have any? Just Leonard's one-shot announcement.
We have that one shot that will be occurring on July 8th. If you subscribe, then you will be entered for the for a slot in the one shot where I will take the turn to DM a session where there will be war. So be ready for that. And it'll be a lot of fun. There will be plenty of mayhem. And a few things that possibly you may not typically run into in most D&D sessions. I'm going to be throwing in some different kinds of things that you haven't seen in the Botched Rolls campaign so far. And I hope to just give you guys a little bit of flavor of how I do things my way.
Or the highway.
What about you, Tim? You had something that looked like you wanted to say.
I just wanted to ask a question of Leonard very quickly.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So with Leonard being so fresh to adventuring, how is he handling the idea of going out and murdering people?
Yeah, he's
Quite
Not-
literally, because I feel like we've skipped over that.
he's actually never killed a person yet. And you actually bring up a very good point. He did stab at one guy who wound up getting dead. At least he didn't do the killing blow. That would have been very interesting if that did happen. Which is why he's trying to keep things as quiet as possible so that it doesn't splash onto his family. But him personally, he's pensive about it. Things have gotten a lot more serious for Leonard because death of humans has never actually occurred. Monsters, that's fine. That's like, if you're in the right community, you slaughter a pig, you gut it, you clean out the carcass, you carve it up, and it's dinner. But an actual person getting dead at your own hands or your group's hands, that's for him, that is, I'm not going to call it murder, but it's definitely manslaughter by self-defense. So that's what it was.
You're an accomplice?
Yes, and I am an accomplice. So Leonard does not want to poke his face out anywhere and just wants to get the heck out of town so that he doesn't get arrested. And his family is now basically accomplices as well for harboring and abetting fugitives or criminals.
Yeah. If Tolan were here, I'd probably pose the same question, although I'm fairly certain that Tolan was a mass murderer before he met the party. With just how crazy he went with that bear.
That was a very nice way, Tim, of asking Leonard if he'd ever killed someone before.
Two birds, one stone. You know how I roll.
Yeah, everybody, Emily, you haven't been privy to this, perhaps, but everybody's been thinking Leonard is secretly Hannibal Lecter. And that's his cuisine angle, is just cannibalism, killing people, and eating them.
But then, of course, you would have to find a very artfully displayed dead body somewhere, wherever he goes.
Right. I have thought about that.
Yeah, as a DM, I've thought about leaving breadcrumbs to someone being a serial killer just to find out that they're not. But
Amazing.
But
Red herrings are the best part about DMing.
The best part of DMing is when you throw out what is the most, from your perspective, the most clearly obvious plot hook, and they're like, that's a red herring, let's go over here. And you're like, there's nothing there. Why are you going there? That's probably the best part of DMing.
Amazing. Yeah, it's the unexpected plays that you remember, really.
Yes, very much more than the things that you've planned that never come to fruition.
Again, why we're called Botched Rolls, because it's when things go bad where the fun things happen. I think we covered that in our first episode. That's what an adventure is. It's when everything's going wrong and you have no idea how to fix it.
Yeah, I think the best line from the campaign that sums up the way that this party works is our first adventure, groceries. And it's just been one random thing to another. and that's kind of how everything is fitting together, which is amazing because I never know
Yeah,
exactly where we're going.
that's what I'm finding real interesting about the campaign in general is like we started very loosely, where we kind of had to make our own adventure, the seeming the seeming lines of plot were there, and you definitely gave us enough to work with, but we definitely had to, as a group, kind of come together and discover something for us to work with. And now we're in a spot here where there is a very clear path forward for us, where it's kind of like a continuation of this journey with Costo, with these Justicars, and eventually coming into a discovery about this fort that had the people disappear. I'm sure that's like a bigger theme that we'll be seeing later on. But it's all very exciting because now we're very much in the swing of what this is a game, and I find it all very exciting.
Well, I'm glad. That's what I'm going for back here. So, anything else, Emily, that you want to ask any of us?
Well, I guess the last question that I didn't ask, but that we kind of touched on, was the kind of balance of the party. You guys mentioned how the roles are different than they typically would be. The classes and their personalities don't necessarily follow any of the tropes or stereotypes that we usually see. Was that did that cause any problems with balancing the party and their abilities, or did it make it a little bit easier to balance the party because there were some of these eccentric places that they fit together that they might not normally have?
I think we came across all of that kind of pretty organically when we were first putting together our party. There were some who specifically had a character build in mind, and we kind of just gathered our different capabilities around that, because we would hear someone's character build, and it's like, I'm going to be a halfling druid that shapeshifts into giant bears all the time. We're like, oh, okay, that's awesome. And then other people are popping up these ideas, and I'm like, okay, nobody's really healing or doing crowd controls. Like, okay, this is another cool thing about this group from several people, is a lot of us are playing this type of character class for the first time. Like, I heard that Anthony, who plays Costo, typically played a cleric, I believe.
He's usually a caster.
He's usually a caster. Okay. I typically play a barbarian. I like going around smacking things with large, blunt objects. But I was like, this time I'm going to do something different. And I went with Bard, which I've never played before, because I was a forever DM like Josh is. So thank you, Josh, again, for the opportunity. And so that's been a lot of fun on having us kind of work together. And even though party balance wasn't directly discussed, it was kind of on the back of everyone's minds. And after we got everything put together, we just kind of went with it. Tim, do you have your opinion on this?
I mean, you've pretty much hit it on the head there. Usually when you make characters for D&D, you don't really think of like party builds outside of your like damage dealers, healers, and half casters and casters. So like when it comes to say how many martial classes do we have, when building a character, I'll say, oh, we already have 3 martial classes. I'll probably stay away from that. And so as we were putting this all together, some people got to their characters quicker than others. And so I think like subconsciously or kind of like intentionally for some people, they kind of like worked around where everyone else was. I knew that I wanted to play a martial class to start with. at first. I had an idea, like I was like, whoa, Warforged, Rune Knight. I had just read Rune Knight. That seemed pretty cool to me. And then I realized, like, from there on, people were starting to pour in. I think there was some discussion of like, oh, we don't have this, so I'll try to do that. But it's usually how far it gets.
Well, I had my own take on that. So when I've been DMing for a while, so I'm not really afraid of different table sizes. But I do prefer a larger table because it allows, when you start getting into 4 and 5, you start having to fill roles. You start having to have, you have to have a caster. You need a healer. You need like a tank. Whenever you get into 7 players, really 6 is that kind of magic number, I think, where it first appears. But when you start getting into like 7 or more characters, you can have half tanks that are filling the role sometimes with another half tank, and you can really give the players a chance not to just jump into a specific role because you need that. From the combat perspective, you can allow, it allows you to cover all your bases without, pinching someone into a very specific spot. So that's part of the reason why we have 7. Because my favorite number is 9 to like DM4. I like a bigger table. It can get a little more hectic. But that's best, I think, served as an in-person game is like when you get 9 people. Over with technology, the more people you add, exponentially things go wrong more, I think.
Yay, Murphy's Law.
So that's why I kind of held it to 7 as like my cap, with this campaign being completely online. So, but it still allowed me to let the characters build whatever they wanted and still covering all those combat necessities rather than just, like wedging someone into a spot because we don't have a caster, we don't have a healer.
Which
I guess that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, which we don't have. We don't have actually a dedicated healer. Tullen fills in for some of the healing, as do I, and so has Costo with his lay on hands. And then the interesting part is we don't have a dedicated rogue.
No.
Interesting. Yeah. So I didn't ask kind of how you guys got together. Is everybody kind of in different parts of the country or the state? Is there any plans at some point to get together and play in person?
If there's a hot tub involved, I think has been stated.
We have a hot tub stream if we hit 1,000 subs. It's like a goal of ours. It's in that very big stretch goal. Hit
that sub button, people.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I'm from outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have Anthony, who plays Costo. I know in real life. I've known him for years in real life. We've played in each other's games. So he's close. And then we have Cypher from the other side of Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. Tullen from Maryland.
Mickey is somewhere in DC.
And Mickey's in and around DC, towards the southern part of DC, maybe somewhere. I don't know. DC's not very big, so he's from DC somewhere.
Virginia side.
Yeah, Alejandra, Braylon, who plays Alejandra, is from Canada. And then we have you two that are from, Tim is from Florida and Jake is from California. So,
The best state.
So it would mostly be an East Coast hot tub party.
I figured somewhere in the Las Vegas would be a good place.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll just all converge in the center of Kansas.
somewhere on a rooftop.
You know what? If we hit 2,000 subs, we'll just rent out Caesar's Palace pool.
Oh no.
Like the Bellagio pool with all the The lights going
Or
up.
maybe somewhere with an infinity pool on top of the hotel, one of those places.
Stream from the penthouse.
I was corrected by chat. Braylon is from Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
So Canada is much more than just one little space. It is just as big as the US. So, but yeah,
Feed into her ego.
but yeah, that was when I started putting botched rules back together in the first place. I went for quality of players over location, other than some legal stuff that we had to look at because it is a stream and there could be money involved and all that stuff. We had to I had to rule some countries out, rule places out, because legally I can't, once you get into doing international business, it's a whole mess, and I was just not dealing with all that stuff. But I just opened it up to anyone in the US that was over 18. So anyone that could legally play, because I wanted good players more than I just wanted players. And I think I did pretty well finding a pretty solid group of players.
Oh, Josh, you're just gonna make me cry.
From what I've seen, everyone has got a really fascinating character, really creative way of playing the game and following the rules and, twisting the rules a little bit when they need to.
That's just part of D&D.
It's part of life.
Fair enough.
I mean, who doesn't get away with a felony or two?
Most people. Speeding, maybe.
I think there's so many laws in the backlogs that everyone commits a felony twice a day.
Don't put your horse
that's
on a refrigerator. I know that's a felony in Pennsylvania for some reason.
Yeah.
Not sure why you would put your horse on a refrigerator. But
Must have been a heck of a kegger.
yeah, something must have happened, and it was so bad that they were like, this is a felony now. What happens if the horse does
Moms
it by itself?
against refrigerator horses.
I don't know. Does that apply to magnets or only live horses? It doesn't really specify. So, anything
Video
else
war
for
didn't
us?
happen.
Anything else for us at all?
I think we covered quite a bit.
Yes, we
I mean,
did.
I know this is only the first episode of this particular part of the stream, so there's going to be more check-ins as the campaign goes on, right?
Oh yes, yeah. I think we're once a month we plan on doing this. So
Yeah. And of course, I'm excited to see what other characters and players have to say and how they're evolving and everything.
yes,
I feel like tonight was very satisfying. We got a lot of coverage here.
And a little bit of sneak peeks, teases, and spoils along the way.
I like the peek behind the veil. Just
Unless, I was lying about everything about Leonard.
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Jaeger never existed. You're all living within a dream world.
There is no series of dead bodies buried underground with the help of Alejandro with Mold Earth.
There is no war in Bossing Say.
So, but thank you so much, Emily, for joining us this week.
Yeah, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. It was awesome to meet everybody.
Thank you, Jake and Tim, for showing up. I hope everybody had a great time, and we will see you guys on Sunday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Are your potassium levels low? Ever wish you could become a banana? Well, head on down to the Botched Rules Discord to become one of our lovely insiders. There, we treat all our bananas with the utmost respect, gossip about Kia's sleeping habits, participate in weekly events, and even win exclusive prizes. Want advantage on your rolls? Then make sure you hit the subscribe button. So, what are you waiting for? It's time to get botched.